Hello, and welcome back to my Power Miners Retrospective. My name is Lua, and today we'll be taking a look at set 8961, the Crystal Sweeper. Starting off as usual, let's have a look at our characters. The odds are somewhat evened out with this set, as there are now both 2 miners and 2 rock monsters. Dr. Brains joins it once more, now with goggles, which technically makes him set exclusive, as do Meltrox and Glaciator. We have one new face, however, in the form of Engineer. He is the second character to carry the bomb emblem, and with the name of Engineer, it's safe to assume he serves a similar role as Rex. It is plain to see, however, that these two are not the same person. I have to say, I'm really shocked to see something like this in a theme like Power Miners. For all the goofiness this theme presents, having a character with a metal plate bolted onto their skull over huge scars gives a very different impression. It's a shame this faceprint never saw use outside of Power Miners, since it's very unique and definitely had potential. Moving on, this set is the first set in Power Miners to have a proper side build. 2, should you count the bike. But the actual proper side build here is this rock monster Catapult. Featuring 2 of these special 30294 rock halves, this is the only appearance of trans neon orange in the entirety of Power Miners, and also actually the final appearance of these pieces. The function of the catapult is simple. Just place the 2 included rock monsters into the buckets and hit the lever to send them flying. Careful though, this is a good way to get all the paint scratched off of them. One last thing worth noting is that this is one of 2 cases where light bluish gray is used in terrain builds, with the other also being a catapult. So light bluish gray being used to signify functionality along with orange, as I brought up in the last episode, seems to ring true for terrain as well. One final thing to look at before the main build is the accessories, which there's a whole heap of. The miners are armed with 2 bundles of dynamite, a shovel, a harpoon gun, which I suspect is meant to shoot what's essentially a pickaxe blade to deal damage to the rock monsters, as well as a banana, a laptop, and these 4 gems, 2 in trans neon green and 2 in trans dark blue. The set also comes with 2 orange, 2 blue, and 2 red crystals on top of what was featured in the catapult. Finally, moving on to the main model, the Crystal Sweeper itself, there are a few things to note before diving into details. First, of course, the play feature. The Crystal Sweeper's play feature is fairly simple mechanically, using only half the cogs that the Thunder Driller does. Still, the result is quite the ambitious function. The turbine spins as the vehicle moves forward, the intention being for the fins of the turbine to hit any crystals the vehicle drives over, sending them flying up the central ramp housed under the cockpit, and making them hit this flap at the rear of the cockpit, in turn making them fall into this big set-exclusive orange bucket. As you might imagine, this doesn't work perfectly, even less so when you try to use this on something bigger, such as the rock monsters. But when it does work, it's very fun. Given this play feature, it's a missed opportunity not to call this set the Crystal Combine instead. Another point I want to make is that the Crystal Sweeper is an excellent demonstration of the color scheme discussed in the last episode. From the big plates exclusively in dark bluish gray, to the white breaking up the lime of the cockpit, there are no misunderstandings to be had here. Well, almost. For whatever unexplainable reason, the designers of this set said, hey, remember the loader dozer and its 2 red pieces in the back that screwed up the color scheme for no reason? Let's do that again, but make it even more pointless. And it's not even something minuscule like a pin of some kind. No, these are bigger pieces. They could have been black, they could have been gray, but no, red it is. What in the world was the idea here? Enough of that. Let's have a closer look at the Crystal Sweeper now. Since it's big and easily splits into lots of sections, let's have a look at all of them on their own, starting with the motorcycle bay. The motorcycle bay features, well, the motorcycle, along with storage for the shovel and harpoon gun on the right, and 2 crates on the left. One of the crates contains the banana, while the other has a lid, which is oddly the only time such a thing appears in Power Miners. Inside of it are the small gems. They appear every now and then in Power Miners and tend to be kind of dissatisfying, but I guess they're better than nothing. Come to think of it, this section houses most of the accessories that come in this set, if you don't count the crystals. There is also this lime 2x2x3 slope with hollow studs, which only appears in this set and the Boulder Blaster. Next up, on the opposite side, we have the side drill. The platform itself is pretty barren, aside from a few tiles, so let's focus on the drill itself. The cockpit rests on a turntable and has quite a neat rounded design, almost looking like a throne of some sort. The drill arm is made up of 3 segments, and worth noting here is that the light bluish grey locking hinge brick has shown up in oddly few sets, 7 total. The drill arm also has another chain hanging from it. Not for any evident purpose, but hey, it sure looks cool. It connects to the cockpit via these Galador joints, allowing for a wide range of steady poses. Finally, there's the cockpit. With this boat window piece, it looks more like a command bridge than a cockpit. A boat window, by the way, that also makes its final appearance here, with only a mold variant showing up later in 2010. This is a very creative use of this piece, as it helps create a concave, rounded contour to the front of the cockpit that matches up with the massive turbine at the front. Inside of the cockpit, there are 2 levers and a large steering wheel, and just enough space to house 1 minifigure. A larger space of some kind would be nice, since it feels like the Crystal Sweeper has a lot of space that's difficult to really use. Finally, the roof pops off really easily, and these floodlights aren't actually part of it, unlike with the Thunder Driller. As mentioned previously, these floodlights are the same model as the one on the Granite Grinder, which makes for some nice interconnectivity between the sets. Although, neat as they are, these floodlights don't look anywhere near as convenient to carry as the ones seen in Rock Raiders. Last of these sections is the turbine itself. It consists of 6 of these blades held together between 2 of these flat Power Miners wheel pieces in orange. Putting it together is repetitive, to say the least. Nonetheless, it makes for an absolutely iconic element of this set and Power Miners as a whole. Before we move on, I want to take one last look at the front of the Crystal Sweeper, as it's home to some notable elements. There are the lime 1x4 curved slopes, which make their first appearance here, as well as the lime 2x6 curved slopes, which remain set exclusive to this day. That about wraps up our look at the Crystal Sweeper, but as with the last episode, there's still a combination model to look at. That being the cream of the crop, the Crystal Crawler. Here it is, in all its tanky glory. Using only about 62% of the pieces, if you count in all the accessories. From the half-track design to the compact yet large aesthetic, such as with the tools that are tucked under the tracks, as well as an actual functional play feature, what's not to love? Let's take a closer look. Starting at the front, we've got this big bucket arm that's part of the play feature, but we'll get to that later. We've also got these really cool dual cockpits that make clever use of the roll cages. The operators look really well protected in there, well, aside from above, but I suppose that's why they have helmets. There's also no controls in the cockpits, but that doesn't really set this build back in my opinion, as you can't really tell when the roll cage is down. There's also these lights under the bucket arm, including turn signals. The last thing you want to do while adventuring deep underground is confuse your fellow motorists. Moving back, we've got the tool storage, as well as these super cool engines that even have a bit of asymmetry going on, which is a cool detail. There's also a number of lights strewn across the vehicle, and some are flimsier than others, but that's a very minor gripe. Up on top, we have the big bucket. It's connected to this long arm and can be extended quite far from the main vehicle. There's also a ladder at the back that aids with accessing it. When the bucket is extended, you can see these rear lights behind it. This is almost certainly just clever parts usage, but it looks funny. Now, as for the play feature, this thing is an all-in-one package. First, it mines into the rock with these claws at the front, then it collects the crystals by scooping them up into this bucket at the front, which doesn't really work, and the claws don't help a whole lot, But once you get them in, the arm can turn all the way back and deposit the material into the larger bucket. This bucket can then be extended away from the vehicle for deposit at a base of some kind. Simple, but fun. Oh, and when you raise the bucket arm, the vehicle number of the crystal crawler is revealed to be 69. How nice. The crystal crawler is meant to feature 3 minifigures, just like the Aero Shredder. However, unlike the Aero Shredder, this thing actually has space for more than 2 minifigures, even if there's only 2 cockpits. In fact, there's space here for all the boys. I sung the praises of the engines earlier, but to be honest, the whole thing is packed with great details all over. Despite this, it's also incredibly sturdy. No need to worry about where to pick this thing up, other than maybe the bucket. While doing photography for this model, I did notice that there's an error in the render. This thing only has one circular saw as an accessory, yet in the render there's 2. One in Rex's hand and the other on the clip. A little bit lazy, but it is what it is. I also found an error in the instructions for this model. At step 19, a few extra bricks appear out of nowhere, a step too early. Did these steps of the instructions get flipped at some point? It would make sense, since LEGO models are usually built inside out, rather than outside in, and that seems to be the change that was made here. One final note I want to bring up is that this build does technically violate the color scheme, as there's this random strip of orange behind the cockpits, and these orange Technic pieces are used for the tracks. But hey, it's a combiner model, we can let it slide. And that concludes this episode. Join me again next time for a closer look at 8707, the Boulder Blaster.